Today we are going to be painting this winter landscape, wire fence. I have gone ahead and traced our picture onto my arch watercolor paper, and I was thinking that we would paint with variations of Payne's gray. So today we're really only going to be using 3 colors, which is different from how we normally paint, but I thought it would be fun to show shadow and depth with a very limited palette. We're going to use Payne's gray. The white will be the white of the paper. We'll be using Van Dyke brown and black, and then black for the wire. So as you can see, we have the image traced out, and I'm going to begin by taking my round 16, and this is the Princeton Heritage Series round 16 brush, and I've got my Winsor and Newton paints, and I've just gotten quite a bit of Payne's gray onto my brush, and this is the color that we're going to be using. It's just this Payne's gray, and I'm going to add quite a bit of water to this. Now I'm going to go ahead and begin just taking quite a bit of this color and bringing it into the background. I'm going to take the wire over top of the background, so I'm not going to worry about getting the wire portion wet, but anywhere where I see snow, I'm going to leave that. I did draw in these little round white circles to kind of give the illusion that snow is falling. This is a line of snow right here that's dark, so I'm gonna leave that and just fill this in right here. Now, another way that we could do these particular white spots, if you had any gouache, that's the type of paint that is a cross between, it's like a little bit more thick than a watercolor paint, and like watercolor, if you get it wet, if you squeeze it out of the tube and get it wet, it will dry up, and then you can get it wet again and reuse it. So I have some of that white gouache, Winsor & Newton gouache right here. If we wanted to, we could just go ahead and do this whole background in this lovely Payne's gray if we wanted to, and then bring little white gouache dots in. Now, if you were going to do a painting that you painted on your own and you wanted to add a little bit of gouache, if you were going to enter that into any type of art competition, if you did watercolor and gouache, it would no longer be just a watercolor. It would be considered mixed media when you do those 2 different mediums. So even if you just used a little bit, so for instance, when this happens for me, if I have a pet portrait for a client and I decide to put the whiskers in with gouache when I'm done in white, then technically speaking, that has become a mixed media piece. I mean, I don't get, your clients are not necessarily going to get too particular, but if you were entering it into any type of competition, it would again be considered mixed media. So just something to think about. All right, finishing up this back spot. I want to make it a little bit darker back over here in this corner. So while it's wet, I'm gonna just add in a little bit more pigment. All right, there we go. So I want to go ahead and let this dry. I do see over here, I might want to darken this up a little bit. So I am just going to get just a little bit more pigment and make it a little bit darker back here. I'm just trying to bring the color in a more even way, so kind of fading into these other colors a little bit so it just doesn't look like an abrupt stop. And again, it's a little bit tricky, right? Because I'm trying to keep all of those little white circles that we've put in. Okay, this is looking great. So, okay, now we're gonna go ahead and let that dry, and then we're gonna come in and we're gonna do some of these shadows. We can do a little bit of that now. So I'm gonna get my Payne's Gray. And I am going to just kind of bring that up a little bit right here where I see the shadow. And I'm going to bring a little bit of water to kind of pull that down, shadow, shadow here. And then we get a little bit of that in here. A little bit in here. Just kind of looks a little bit like this. You can see just pulling that shadow down a little bit. I'm going to do that same thing over here. And there is the shadow from this here that we have as well. Okay, so we just some dots over here, and just gonna let these things dry, and then when they dry we'll come back in and we'll do a little bit more. Now we're going to paint the bits of the fence that are made of wood, and as I said, we're going to be just using 3 colors. So we're going to be using the Payne's Gray, the black, and the Van Dyke brown. And so what I want to do is for this, I am going to still be using my round 16 to start, and I'm going to pick up this Van Dyke brown, and I'm going to just do a wash of the Van Dyke brown here. And get these fence posts in. Oop. Okay, that will need to dry as well. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this side. And we'll let that dry before we go do any more. Now that it's dry, what I want to do is I want to go in and get the dark sides of the brown over here, and just really give that a rich look. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go even darker than what we have right here with this brown. So I'm gonna get a richer Van Dyke brown going over here. And I'm not necessarily gonna let it be all straight and letting the color stay uniform. I might let the color have some variety, maybe. We'll see. We'll see how it ends up turning out. And with this big one, I do want to move right back to this round 16 because it's just so big. And you know, when you start to learn to use a bigger brush, you can cover a lot of ground faster. And if you ever did decide to start taking watercolor commissions, that can be, being able to do it a little bit faster is just a really useful skill. But in the beginning, when we're doing this, at least for me, when I first started out, it was really, really just about enjoying the process. And so I wasn't concerned about how long something would take. But, you know, as the more you do, I enjoyed challenging myself to try the bigger brush to see if I could cover a little bit more ground faster. And if you're doing bigger pieces, bigger watercolor paintings, the bigger brushes really are imperative because, you know, just not having the right tool, like a smaller brush for a big surface area is really not enjoyable. You want to have the right tools for what it is that you're doing. Now, I do want to go ahead and pick up my round 2. So here we were just talking about big brushes, but I want to grab my round 2. I want us to begin working on this barbed wire. So I'm going to use my black for the barbed wire, and I'm going to begin pulling in that black. And I did one line kind of down, and I do want to kind of get that little Barbie. So I'm just that back and forth. Back and forth, kind of showing the barbed wire. And then the wire's coming in from over here, and I didn't do a great job of pulling that in on this side, but I'm gonna show it. And I'm gonna do that barbed technique of just kind of going back and forth. And I'm going to pick up a darker amount of this black right here. I just want this to be really dark and distinct. Okay, that is really starting to look good. My posts here are still drying. I do want to do a couple little barbs, just a little back there like that, just to add a little bit of something. All right, I'm going to rinse off this brush, And the thing that I want to do next, I'm going to pick up my round 6 and I'm going to go back to my Payne's Gray because there's these spots. So for instance, right here, and I want that to be a little bit darker. So I've just got my Payne's Gray. I'm right here and I am going to show this as the snowy side of the snow that's on top of our fence post. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And there's a dark bit of that right here. It's kind of got a little bit of a line up there, and it is darker right there, and it almost comes down under just a little bit. So that's starting to look pretty good, pretty good. Now what I want to do, I'm going to take some of my Van Dyke brown. I want to see how, yeah. I'm going to do some lines over here. Ideally, this would be a little bit more dry for something like this, but it's getting the job done. There is a sharp brown line right here. And there's a couple happening here. And we see that the light source is hitting the sides of these. So now we definitely want those posts to dry. And while those posts are drying, I'm going to add quite a bit of water to this Payne's Gray because there is just kind of a little bit of that still kind of coming in under here just a bit. This color just a bit coming over here like this. Denoting these little snowdrift areas around our fence posts. Oh, and I just got a little bit of that black to bleed. So I'm taking this little bit to kind of just stop it from bleeding all over there. If you had a paper towel, that would pick up quite a bit of that. All right, now we're going to let that dry. And the next thing that I want to do is I'm going to do a really dark side, just using my black, getting a little Payne's Gray in there and bringing that down here like so. So just letting this be really, I might have some lines, let some of that brown, lighter brown show through. You can see the highlight right there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to take this strong dark black and I'm going to make lines. It is pretty dark right in here. Okay. It needs to be darkened up over here. As well. And then there's a shadow that's happening with this snow that I want to make sure I bring in. And so it's Payne's Gray, that is kind of right here from our snow. All right, so there you go. I do want to maybe darken this up a little even more. I would say this can get a little bit darker right here. And let's see if I want to darken anything else up. This is a little bit darker here. And maybe a little bit darker right here. I could, even if I wanted to, bring just a little bit more Payne's Gray in here. And maybe even just make this line a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And you'll remove that tape and voila, you have this lovely little landscape that is fun and easy and working with just 3 colors and really showing you how to use different values and shadows. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and I will see you again next week. Thanks for being here.